I'm Brittany. This is Morun. And welcome to Gaywatch, where we watch and read gay things. New microphone! A new microphone has been installed and is up and running, but not tweaked yet. So if you can't hear me, or at any point, or there's something going wrong, please tell me. Please, I have, it's not fully set up yet. So however you're hearing me now, it's not tweaked exactly the way I want it yet. So this is not the final product. It is, however, already so much better. I also have to relearn how to gesture at y'all, because this is on a boom arm that you can't see. So I've got stuff over here, so I can no longer just gesture freely with the left hand. And I don't know how I'm going to read on stream without just holding it in my right hand the whole time. So we get to learn a couple things this stream. We read for a couple of hours. We take a break around halfway through. We usually get through about 40 to 50 pages. And we are on page... Oh, we continue to read volume 6 of Erha, by the way. We are on page 141 for chapter 192, which is called Shizun Gave Me Life. So nothing to see here then. It's probably going to be pretty chill. There are trigger warnings down in the description box. There is also the evergreen link to the public Gaywatch Discord that is very book-oriented. So if you're wanting to talk about Erha there's places for both new readers and rereaders. And there's also some channels in there for the other books that I've read on here. So Moda Azusha, Heaven Official's Blessing, etc., etc. It is also a brand new Discord. So if you have any suggestions or there's something that you want to see put in there, just toss it into the suggestion box and I'll look into getting it up for you. Alrighty? So, see, I would have to read like this in order to have it in my left hand, just to communicate what's happening to me today. So, I suppose I'm just perpetually reading in the right hand now? No matter what, we'll deal with it. It's fine. Not like we're reading a really fraught series. Fraught becoming one of my favorite words. And see, I already have it in my left hand. It's like way down here. Oh, actually, I could hold it like that. Never mind, I'm a liar. You're watching me having to process things in real time here. I have to move that over there. I was so focused on getting the mic set up from a sound perspective today. Did I think about the logistics of having to do reading streams like this? No. So we're going to learn on the fly. Okay. Get my face out of here. What am I doing? There we go. On the last day of Chu Wanning's seclusion, an uninvited guest arrived at Xishang Peak. While Morun was helping Chu Wanning dress, bright and early, a quick rapping came on the doors of Red Lotus Pavilion. After 10 days of cultivating in a deep trance, Chu Wanning was still muzzy and disoriented. He rather indifferently said, "Please come in." Morun snorted. "What are you laughing at?" Shizun set barriers at the door. Other than myself, Shuimeng, and the others, who else could come in? Only then did Chu Wanning remember the spells and lift a hand to release them. A panicked messenger disciple hurtled in like a headless chicken, smelling strongly of wine. "Bad news, you hung elder. A powerful demon's making a mess at Loyalty Hall." Man, when she wants the plot to come crashing in, she really crashes it in. Morun and Chu Wanning exchanged a quick look and rushed out without delay. They were still some distance away when Morun caught sight of a massive gourd spinning in circles in the courtyard. A crowd of elders and disciples watched in helpless exasperation. "A powerful demon?" Morun asked. The fat gourd gurgled. At the sight of Chu Wanning and Morun, Shui Jingyang's eyes brightened. He slapped his thigh. "Ah, you hung! You woke up in the nick of time. Thank goodness, thank goodness." Chu Wanning was baffled, but his features were so accustomed to indifference that even bewilderment made him look wise. An amazing sentence, thank you. Another demon that escaped the Golden Drum Tower, Shui Jingyong grimaced, both amused and disgruntled. It won't leave. The gourd of debauchery. Hang on. She really just made me read those syllables out loud. But what does that remind me of? Oh God, there was something. Was it Heaven Official's Blessing? There was something like equally hilarious that got named in that way. Oh, I swear it was Heaven Official's Blessing. But I could be wrong. But oh damn. Because it should go right next to like the Gourd of Debauchery and the something else. Oh. I love how there's more than one possibility. Because like Kem is like virgin detecting sword, which yes. Henry with like incorruptible chastity meatballs, also yes. That's gonna bug me. But anyway, the Gourd of Debauchery has entered. Chu Wanning looked up at the gargantuan gourd rampaging through the courtyard. It was as tall as 2 men and gleamed with a pearly glow. Pink fog and gouts of wine spewed from its mouth. Indeed, this was the legendary demon gourd of debauchery. It's harmless, Chu Wanning said. But it forces you to drink. This was true. The gourd was presently chasing a group of disciples, emitting a series of incomprehensible gurgles. Whenever it caught one, a hole would appear in its side, from which it sprayed wine into its victim's mouth. Chu Wanning was speechless. Everybody drink. Somebody speechless, you take a drink. Apparently, it only concedes to people with a better tolerance than itself. Shui Jingyong added pitiably. Yu Hung, could you... Chu Wanning raised a hand to his temple as if his head ached already. Leaping down to the courtyard, he summoned Tian Wen and held the willow vine out in front of the gourd. Stop, he said. I'll drink with you. The fat gourd wobbled in delight. An opening immediately appeared and shot a stream of wine at Chu Wanning's elegant face. Chu Wanning dodged it, a flare of golden light, and Tian Wen had the fat gourd tightly bound. Why don't we try it another way? Do you have cups? It spat a small gourd ladle out of the opening, filled with clear wine. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Chu Wanning sat down and started drinking with the gourd of debauchery. Not bad. Give me another. There's literally a splash. Do you have any pear blossom white? No. Making requests of the gourd of debauchery. There is no way to have anticipated this. This is the same book that had intercrural and then long healing brotherhood in the previous episode, right? This is the same series, right? Yu Hung! Shui Jingyong cried out in wonder. Can you tell what it's saying? Chu Wanning replied. I understand something of the speech of this type of demon. Splash, said the gourd. Morun smiled. Shizun, what did it say? It's just chatting. It said it hasn't seen the sun for a long time. The gourd seemed ecstatic, and for whatever reason it seemed to also understand Chu Wanning. It sidled over to pour him another brimming ladleful, all solicitousness. Is it pear blossom white this time? Splash. I don't like Nuer Hong. The gourd dumped it out and poured another. Everyone looked on in stunned silence, including us. The human-demon duo drank until noon, the human sober and the demon in high spirits. As the day wore on, the crowd before Loyalty Hall swelled. Even Shui Meng and Shimei came to see. As soon as Mo-Run saw Shimei, he recalled their earlier misunderstanding. Guilt weighed on him, and he immediately thought to apologize. But the second Shimei caught sight of him, he turned and left. Okay. Shui Meng noticed too and elbowed Mo-Run. I think he's still upset. Then what do I do? Mo-Run asked morosely. Go talk to him. You two are at odds and I'm caught in the middle. I can't do anything, Shui Meng said. Go on, it's not like you're helping here anyway. Mo-Run glanced at Chu Wanning, still exchanging toasts with the wine gourd. Nothing serious was going to happen without him. Then I'll go after Shimei. Stay here and watch over Shizun. If anything happens, you have to tell me right away. It didn't take long for Mo-Run to catch up. Upon reaching the dancing sword platform, Mo-Run called out, Shimei! There was no response. Shimei! Finally, Shimei came to a stop and turned, looking at him consideringly. Arun, what is it? Nothing. Mo-Run waved his hands, frowning. I just wanted to say what happened last time. It was all my fault. Which time are you referring to? Mo-Run froze, eyes widening. What? Shimei's expression remained blandly gentle. As the wind picked up, he tucked a lock of hair behind his ear. Do you mean the time you thought I was going to hurt Shizun at the Red Lotus Pavilion? Or the time you two wouldn't sit with me during that dinner in Yuliang Village? Or even earlier when Shizun first woke up and I met you in Wuchang Town to bring you wine, and you barely spoke to me the whole meal? Which one do you mean? This is exactly the type of receipt keeping shit that I would expect from whoever is doing all of this. Like, exactly. This is something I've been looking for. Uh-huh. Because he hasn't said anything, but he's been keeping track. He has the books. He has been bookkeeping. At least this far back. And he didn't just spontaneously start bookkeeping now. He didn't just start collecting receipts. If this is how he is about recent events, then this is how he is. Unless you have some massive development that I don't know about. But it is, well, I mean, this could also be just because he's talking to Mo-Run about it, but all of this is very deliberately about Mo-Run's behavior. Well, no, that could still just apply to Chu Wanning as well, depending on if Shimei is either in love with Mo-Run or in love with Chu Wanning. Or neither, but I still say that he's in love with one of them. Whether or not he's evil, he's in love with one of them. Mo-Run hadn't expected him to dredge up events that had happened so long ago. For a moment, he was too dazed to reply. You've been angry with me all this time? Shimei shook his head. I wouldn't say angry, but yes, it's bothered me. Mo-Run said nothing. Arun, you've been pushing me away since Shizun came back to life. At this, Mo-Run didn't know what to say. He was pushing Shimei away. They'd once been so close even Chu Wanning could see it clear as day, but it had always felt like something was missing. The vague understanding they'd shared when they were young had never been explicitly addressed. Later, when Mo Run recognized his true feelings, he didn't know how to handle his relationship with Shimei. He'd contemplated telling Shimei outright, but discarded the idea. He had never confessed to Shimei, nor was he entirely sure of the nature of Shimei's feelings for him. If he rashly ran up and said he wanted to cut any romantic ties, would it not be too abrupt, too presumptuous? In the end, he had decided to let time fade whatever it was they'd shared. Shimei watched him quietly for a while before continuing. When you first came to Sisheng Peak, I told you that I, too, was an orphan who didn't have many friends, and that from then on we'd be family. So why have you changed? Mo Run was devastated. He suddenly felt lost. Why had he alienated Shimei so? And see, with his memory being screwed with, is there something he knows about Shimei that has been zapped from his brain, but is still like lingering in his intuition? Just going to very quietly lose my mind. Had he and Shimei exchanged more than 100 words since his return from the Ghost Realm? They'd once been inseparable, but now they were drifting apart. Perhaps he'd really overdone it. I'm sorry, he said. There's nothing to be sorry for. Shimei looked away. Forget it. It's fine. Really putting the bitch and shifty bitch in this moment. Don't be angry. If you're angry, I'll feel awful too. You've always been good to me. Shimei finally showed him a faint smile. I'm good to you, but how does that compare to Shizun? Why are we so... Why is this about Shizun? Like, all of a sudden... You're specifically wanting Mo Run to focus on you more than Shizun. But their roles are so different. You are Shizun's student. He's your Shizun too. But you're wanting... I'm not articulating this very well, am I? Why is this about... making sure Mo Run has focus on you all the time? And it could still be for either motivation. Because if Mo Run is still fixated on Shimei, then he's not fixated on Chu Wanning. And that's either to the end of because I want Chu Wanning or to the end of because I want you. But then also, are we trying to drive a wedge as well? In this moment, specifically. We're trying to guilt trip Mo Run into paying attention to him, to you more? That's different. Shimei gazed out toward the dusky mountains in the distance. You once told me I was good to you, that I'd brought you a lot of warmth. What about Shizun? He gave me my life, Mo Run said. I mean, he did save his life. These are simply facts. Wanting to plow him for the next 1,000 years as they cultivate eternal life, notwithstanding, Shizun very much saved his life. It was a long time before Chimay spoke. I understand. Mo-Run's heart ached terribly at the sight of him like this. There's nothing to compare anyway. Everyone is different. Chimay didn't let him finish. He turned, the wind at his back, and patted Mo-Run's chest. It's okay. You don't need to explain. I know what you mean. To be honest, I'm not that petty. But I really was hurt that you could think that of me. What? Excuse me? What? Wait, I'm sorry. It's okay. You don't need to explain. I've been very quietly and politely demanding that you explain for like a page of dialogue now. But it's okay. You don't need to explain. I'm not that petty. I've been bothered by it from the moment that Chu Wanning came back to life, but it's no bother, really. Yeah, see? It's another thing. Listen, guys, I would Love Bunny says, listen, guys, I would like to give him the benefit of the doubt, okay? You are all interpreting this so cruelly. And we are. But it's Meat Bun who's done this to us. I haven't been giving Chimay a single inch to work with even when I should. And now that he's doing this shit, despite the fact that still none of this is anything definitive, and they're going to very easily be, we're obviously missing a lot of context. The context isn't necessarily Chimay's evil. I still freely admit this. But at the same time, I freely admit that I am the most suspicious of this man. So I just simply don't let him get away with anything even when he should. And I can't keep it out of my voice. Yeah, I can't keep it out of the way I read Chimay. I really can't. I try to read Chimay in good faith. It does not work. I'm not capable. Let's start afresh. It's water under the bridge. See? I can't. Mo-Run's eyes were dark and gleaming. After a beat, he nodded and said gratefully, okay. Leaning against the jade railings of the dancing sword platform, Chimay looked especially tall and slender. He gazed out at the leaves fluttering below. The silence stretched until Mo-Run said, let's head back. What did you want to say to... What did you want to say back then? They spoke at the same time. Oh, okay. So they said this at the same time? Mo-Run was confused. Back when? Before the Heavenly Rift, Chimay said. Only then did Mo-Run recall the confession he'd left half-made at Butterfly Town. You never finished. I don't know what you wanted to say. May I ask you what it was now? As Mo-Run opened his mouth to answer, they heard a massive crash from the direction of Loyalty Hall. Fucking danmei authors. Both their faces paled. Shizin's over there, Mo-Run exclaimed. Chimay had also lost his appetite for idle chatter. Let's hurry back. They turned and raced back toward the main compound, where they found yet another fat gourd in the wide courtyard of Loyalty Hall. What the hell is this? Mo-Run blurted. Shui Jingyang covered his face. Another gourd of debauchery. How many are there? 2, 1 for wine. She's gonna make me. Two. One for wine and one for lust. This is a very serious novel with very dark themes. They grow in pairs from the same stem. Shui Jingyong looked like his head was about to explode. The one testing Yu Hong's tolerance is just the younger brother. Now the older one's here too. Mo Run's face was inscrutable as he worked through this new information. If the wine gourd likes to drink, then the lust gourd, he turned. Face ashen. Toward that spinning pink gourd. Should have had alcohol today. The lust gourd knows every trick of seduction on earth, Shui Jingyong said in deep embarrassment. It only obeys the orders of the purest people. Given the intercrural of it all, does Chu Wanning even qualify? Oh my god, is this how he's outed as a sexual being? This is not how he's outed for being a man that fucks. This is not. This can't. No. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. This is not how this man is exposed in this way. Absolutely not. Shimei. What about Shimei? Can we throw Shimei at it? To order it around? Apparently, you know, this gourd is looking for a dom. Can we get... Mo Run turned and shouted, Shui Meng! Why isn't Shui Meng here? Shimei asked in confusion. Where is he? Shui Jingyong pointed at the lust gourd. He's already inside undergoing the trial. He said he wanted to help Yu Hong. Mo Run breathed a sigh of relief. That takes care of that then. If Shui Meng doesn't count as pure, no one on earth does. The way I didn't even think of him, but they are so right. He'd hardly spoken when there was a great boom. They watched as Shui Meng was unceremoniously ejected from the mouth of the lust gourd and landed sprawling in the crowd. It was a really good guess, though. I bought it. Chu Wanning, still drinking with the wine gourd, glanced over at the commotion. What happened? Blurted Shimei. Don't tell me that even the young master, someone else exclaimed. Shui Meng stumbled to his feet, coughing up a storm with his face flushed red. His eyes showed furious embarrassment as he howled at the gourd. You stupid demon! You're so freaking shameless! Looking back and forth between them, Mo Run realized Shui Meng was somehow in wedding robes of red and gold. He couldn't keep the amusement out of his voice as he asked, What happened? Shui Jingyong put a hand over his face, unable to utter a single word. I've heard of this, Shimei said. The lust gourd isn't actually lustful. It's a hopeless romantic. It wants to marry the person with the cleanest and most adoring heart in the world. Someone who has no one else in their heart. Apparently, those sucked into the gourd find themselves in a wedding chamber. To do what? Because if it's to marry the gourd, technically speaking, on a very undead technicality, Mo and Chu Wanning are taken in that way. So are we going to have to throw Shimei in here? And that is how we learn that there is one person that Shimei is like totally gone for. Not who, mind you, but just the confirmation that it's somebody. I don't know, man. I don't know. I am just trying to process. Then what? The gourd's primordial spirit transforms into the image of a veiled bride or groom. Their victim needs to remove the veil with their own hands. Will they be blessed with the sight of the lust gourd's true face? Moran asked. Of course not. What they see depends on each individual. If there's someone they love, they see that person's face. If they don't, but are lustful, I heard they'll see... Shimei cleared his throat. A stunning man or woman without a stitch of clothing. Only the truly pure-hearted will see the lust gourd's original form. Okay. Mo glanced in some disbelief at Shui Meng. So angry smoke was practically rising from his ears. Then what did Shui Meng see? There was no way Shui Meng was in love with someone, but Mo Run refused to believe Shui Meng would have seen some nude man or woman either. Yet Shui Meng had indeed been thrown out by the lust gourd, and it was clear from the way the gourd was bouncing and rolling around that Shui Meng had been an object of immense entertainment. Shimei couldn't bear to watch. In an attempt to spare Shui Meng some embarrassment, he began, The lust gourd might have made a mistake. He never finished. Shui Meng had unsheathed Long Chung and pointed it at the gourd. You fucking turned into me to seduce me! No! Not the funniest possible answer! You fucking turned into me to seduce me, he hollered. You dressed an illusion of me in women's clothes. You garbage gourd, how dare you slander me? He's looking for someone exactly like him, but a woman. It's one of those things that's so funny, you can't laugh. Anyone else experience this? Because that's what I'm going through right now. The watching disciples of Xisheng Peak, Mo Run included, all fell silent, trying to hold back their laughter. But it couldn't last. Guffaws burst from the crowd. The narcissistic Shui Ziming, the peacock in love with his own tail, had become the bride the lust gourd created. When Shui Meng lifted the veil, he had seen his own made-up face. Makes sense when you think about it. Mo Run was trying his best not to laugh too loudly. He nodded. I'm sure Shui Meng would be very pretty as a girl. Oh no! We have art. Before Mo Run doubled over with laughter, he heard Shui Jingyong shout once more, exasperated. Yu Heng, once you've dealt with the wine gourd, why don't you handle this one? There's also art of poor Shui Meng. Ah! I totally clicked off on the wrong thing here. There we go. That's the end of the chapter, by the way. But here we are. This poor egotistical man. Really having a moment in public. Oh my god, apologies for the hair, actually. I meant to mention, I've been trying a new shampoo. It's not going well. So, apologies for the, very nature of me at the moment. I cannot believe we are on page 153 for chapter 193, which is called Shizin, did you make me your wife? Because of course it is. The three, actually, what time is it? No. Okay, all right, we got time. The three purest and most arrogant people on Xisheng Peak were Shui Meng, the Tenlong Elder, and Chu Wanning. Shui Meng had already been tossed out by the lust gourd, and the Tenlong Elder hadn't always been celibate. He'd once had a wife, but her health had been poor, and she'd passed not long after the wedding. It was said the Tenlong Elder learned the healing art so he'd never again lose those he cherished to illness. How you gonna be out here and just toss me 2 fucking sentences that has me dying for the Tenlong Elder? Why? I would like an explanation from Meat Bun personally, please. What the fuck was that? Huh? Which only left Chu Wanning. The Yuheng Elder has this in the bag. Definitely. If the young master can't handle it, we'll have to rely on the young master Shizin. These words needled Mo Run, but he couldn't do a thing. He scrambled for a random solution and turned to Shui Jingyong. Why don't I give it a try? Shui Jingyong looked him up and down before tactfully replying, Renair, the first condition to subdue the lust gourd is virginity. So, like, how virgin are we talking here? 'Cause Chu Wanning, under the strictest definitions, not quite so virginal at the moment. So are we just talking like, is this just a penetration thing? Because in which case, we're fine, we're cool, everyone's fine. If we're talking like, if the net goes much wider than that, I think we're in trouble. Mo Run didn't offer again. Across the courtyard, Chu Wanning had successfully drunk the wine gourd under the table. It toppled over with a thunk. When the smoke cleared, only a small jade-green gourd remained, quiescent on the ground. Shui Jingyong scooped up the little wine gourd and stowed it in his Chankun pouch, delighted. There's really no one like the Yuheng Elder. Here, have a go at the lust gourd next. Lines of dialogue, first of all. You know, the lust gourd. We've all seen it. Chu Wanning's expression was unchanged, but he lowered his lashes, refusing to meet Shui Jingyong's eyes. No thanks. Shui Jingyong gaped at him. It wasn't just him. The whole assembly of disciples and elders stood stunned. Why? I've had too much to drink. I'm tired. Smooth. Shui Jingyong wasn't stupid. It was no exaggeration to call Chu Wanning a man who could down 1,000 cups. He stared long and hard at that aloof man in white until Chu Wanning lost patience and turned away with a flick of his sleeves. Suddenly, it dawned on Shui Jingyong. He blurted, Yuheng, don't tell me you've... Chu Wanning's ears flushed crimson. He turned back in a fury, phoenix eyes spitting sparks. What nonsense are you speaking? Shui Jingyong's lips couldn't even shape the words had sex. Impossible, he thought. Who was Chu Wanning, Yuheng of the night sky, the Beidou immortal? If he had any salacious encounters, no, who would believe it? Shui Jingyong slapped his own thigh. Then give it a try. Otherwise, the gourd will keep wandering about here. It'll annoy us to death, even if it doesn't attack anyone. The gourds of debauchery have thick skin. You couldn't cut through it, even if you hacked at them for years at a time. Chu Wanning scanned the crowd. The disciples all looked back at him eagerly, save for Mo Run, who watched him with hot guilt he couldn't quite hide. I think anyone in this crowd with any observational skills knows exactly what's happening right now. Chu Wanning swore inwardly, but he was indeed stuck. If he left now with a sweep of his sleeves, there'd be talk tomorrow. After some thought, he said, I'll give it a try, then. In the next moment, the lust gourd sucked Chu Wanning into its hollow middle, spinning in place. The disciples of Xisheng Peak were certain the lust gourd would submit to Chu Wanning. Mo Run alone knew the truth. On a rainy night not long ago, in the dark little room of a Wuchang Town inn, on that bed where mouths met and skin brushed, he had despoiled the purest cultivator in the world with his own hands. Understandable that at least Mo Run thinks that we're in danger. We're in so much danger. But nobody fucking move. Because there was a scene break. Chu Wanning opened his eyes. We're going into the gourd with Chu Wanning. Contained within the gourd was a dreamlike world. Just as the legends described, a wedding chamber lay inside, red candles shining bright and bed canopies hanging low. As he stepped to the center of the chamber, he saw a rosewood bed covered with thick blankets, strewn with dates and peanuts. Every detail was rendered, from the coverlets to the hangings. An old woman stood at the doorway, obviously an avatar of the gourd. Her hair was jade green, and her grin revealed teeth the same hue. Chu Wanning knew he had no hope of defeating the lust gourd and preferred not to waste his breath. Taking a few steps toward the old lady, he said, "Grandmother, you can send me out now. I've no need to lift the veil." The old woman smiled. She mumbled. Chu Wanning blinked. He hadn't expected the old woman wouldn't understand human speech. She wasn't as intelligent as the wine gourd and couldn't understand Chu Wanning's intentions. He had no choice. He took a breath and braced himself, then turned to the bed. A person sat at its foot, dressed like a bride in black upper robes patterned with dragons and crimson skirts embroidered with phoenix feathers. His feet were bare, and his head was veiled, hiding his face. The old lady tottered closer. There was a small pop as smoke rose from her hand and transformed into a jade, ruyi scepter. She handed it to Chu Wanning and gestured for him to approach the bed. The idea of Mo Run dressed in a bridal gown hardly bore thinking about. The thought repelled him. But when he remembered how he himself had been made a ghost bride at Butterfly Town, he realized he would be missing a unique opportunity to see Mo Run looking silly if he didn't take a peek. More than distaste was at stake. He would never forgive himself for missing such a chance. Face green-tinged, Chu Wanning took a deep breath. He stepped forward. The old woman seemed to be getting impatient. I know. Don't worry. He lifted the scepter and let the veil fall back. Chu Wanning's eyes widened slightly. Did I say? I know, don't worry. Sorry, I'm trying real hard not to read ahead in this moment. I know, don't worry. He lifted the scepter and let the veil fall back. Chu Wanning's eyes widened slightly. You're... In the crimson light of the canopy, a man in a beaded crown looked up. The candlelight played over his pale yet handsome face, his dark eyes filled with a mocking ridicule. He tilted his chin to smile up at Chu Wanning. Is this fucking Taishan-jun? Nobody fucking move. Nobody fucking move! Chu Wanning froze. It was indeed Mo Run, but his face was unnaturally pallid, his complexion sickly. On the whole, he appeared bizarre. Oh my god! What is I did but it so it you see his you I'm sorry. I'm trying to my brain's trying to catch up with what this means. If he's in I should really just read. I should really just fucking read. Jesus. I mean, he is Taishan-jun. They are one and the same, but why would he see kind of OG Mo Run? It's so funny because it feels like it makes total sense, but I can't quite draw everything together in the maze. But like, it's right there. Okay. Ah, it looks like Wanning truly can't forget this venerable one. Chu Wanning's face must have shown his shock. The man reached out and grabbed his wrist. His touch was ice cold, and the look he pinned Chu Wanning with was a vulture's cruel glare. Mo Run grinned, but his smile was eerie. It held no warmth. This venerable one is glad. What was this nonsense? Chu Wanning thought with exasperation that this lust gourd might have been locked inside Golden Drum Tower so long it had lost its mind. Its creations were incomprehensible. Let go. Mo Run did not. Chu Wanning turned to the green-haired old woman. Make him let go. He was still speaking when the bride, Mo Run, shot to his feet. Chu Wanning saw the beads of his crown sway and felt a sudden grip around his waist. The world spun, and when he returned to his senses, he'd been pushed down on the red and gold bed. Mo Run was bent over him, pinning him beneath his body as he reached down to grab his jaw. Looks like you really enjoyed what this venerable one offered you. The man's hot breath scalded the crook of his neck. You still can't forget me. Chu Wanning shoved him away, brows knitting in a frown. The dialogue this lust gourd had devised was too outrageous. Mo Run had always been gentle, courteous, and respectful toward him. Why would he ever speak like this? Awkward and amused, embarrassed yet helpless, Chu Wanning evaded his touch, making a wrinkled mess of the bedding. Suddenly Chu Wanning narrowed his eyes, looking again at the crimson embroidery on the bed. Realization struck like lightning. The dream. He froze, scarlet rising in his cheeks. This was the dream he'd had. Mo Run had been just like this in those visions, his mouth full of filth and his hands rough and brutal. This wasn't an illusion the lust gourd had created whole cloth, but something drawn from his own unspeakable imaginings. The shameful realization left him mortified. Even the tips of his ears were burning. Baby. He felt a scalding wetness. In this moment of distraction, Mo Run had started sucking on his earlobe. He stuck his tongue greedily into Chu Wanning's ear. The sensation drew an involuntary gasp from Chu Wanning. His voice was hoarse in his ears, thick with humiliated tears. Hearing it made him feel beyond disgraced. For some reason, the scene before him felt real, as if he'd been with Mo Run like this a very long time ago. As if they had tangled together just like this. Mo Run pinning Chu Wanning to the bed, kissing his neck, his cheek, his ear, his movements rough and urgent. Panicked and furious, even the ends of Chu Wanning's eyes had gone red. He struggled uselessly to break free until Mo Run's mouth nearly landed on his own. Boom! The illusory Mo Run froze, staring disbelievingly at Chu Wanning. Seizing his chance, Chu Wanning pushed him aside. Golden light shone in his hands. Tian Wen crackled to life and slammed down on Mo Run in the illusion. The sight of the golden willow vine left Mo Run stupefied. You're, he blurted, you're... Tian Wen lashed down again, showering sparks. Mo Run took the blow without fighting back. He stared, eyes wide in abject shock. A faint haze of smoke rose. The green old woman disappeared, as did the illusory Mo Run. Within the wedding chamber knelt a green-haired and pointy-eared young man with exquisite features, whom Chu Wanning didn't recognize. Still incandescent with rage, Chu Wanning rose from the bed, clutching at his gaping lapels. He glared at the little demon with eyes both sensual and furious, his voice like an angered panther, low and dangerous. Beast, he pushed through gritted teeth. This was the lust gourd's true form. It stared at Chu Wanning, face colorless in shock and fear. It's you. Chu Wanning whipped around in rage. What do you mean, it's me? The lust gourd had been reduced to a trembling mess. It fell to its knees, kowtowing again and again. This junior didn't know it was... It couldn't seem to say Chu Wanning's name. Flinching, it slammed its head against the ground. Xianjun, please forgive me. Xianjun, please forgive me. Chu Wanning eyed the creature. Many years ago, Chu Wanning had defeated countless demons and spirits on exorcism missions. Tianwen was infamous among their number, and several lesser spirits were known to go shocked stiff at the mere sight of him. He hadn't expected the lust gourd to be the same. Chu Wanning recalled Tianwen and rose from the bed, staring down at the young man kowtowing on the floor. Let me out. Yes, yes. The lust gourd didn't dare delay. It recited the incantation and mist exploded from the ground, forcing Chu Wanning to close his eyes. When the fog cleared and he could see again, he'd return to the courtyard before Loyalty Hall. The crowd rushed forward and surrounded him. Shizun, are you all right? Nobody does it like you, Yu Yang. Shizun, were you injured? The mist smelled of rotting gourds. Chu Wanning felt dizzy, and it took him a moment to realize the giant lust demon had disappeared. In its place, on the stone slabs before him, lay a little pink gourd. Still caught in the shame of the illusion, Chu Wanning wasn't in the mood to elaborate. He turned to Shui Jingyong. Take both gourds and keep them in the demon-suppressing tower. Okay, Shui Jingyong's face fixed upon Chu Wanning. Shui Jingyong's gaze fixed upon Chu Wanning. He opened his mouth and let it hang, as if hesitant to speak. Chu Wanning had a bad feeling. What is it? Nothing. Shui Jingyong's expression certainly said otherwise. Chu Wanning swiftly realized everyone else was eyeing him with a barely concealed curiosity and amusement. When he turned, he found even Mo Run watching him with an awkward look, his tanned skin flushing. What? Finally, Chu Wanning realized what was happening. He looked down at his clothes. At some point, perhaps the second he'd entered the lust gourd's bowels, his customary white had been swapped for a set of auspiciously embroidered robes like Shui Meng's, precisely the sort of clothes worn when performing wedding vows. Chu Wanning was left speechless. That was a scene break. But we're almost to the end of the chapter. Hang on. And just fucking hang on. The story of the Yuheng Elder defeating demons in wedding garb swiftly made the rounds through all of Xisheng Peak. The question most debated by the disciples was, whom had the Yuheng Elder married inside the gourd? Someone who had their fill of living cheerfully. I love the way that's phrased. Someone who had their fill of living cheerfully answered, I'm sure it was a gorgeous woman. Someone wholly ready to die waggled their brows and added, who knows, it might have been a beautiful man. Someone who cherished their life replied in all seriousness, when he lifted its veil, the elder likely saw the lust gourd's true form. If he saw anything else, the lust gourd would have been angered and he wouldn't have been able to defeat the demon. The group cast disdainful looks at the spiritless coward who cared so much about his continued existence. Shaking their heads, they left it at that. There was one brave warrior on Xisheng Peak, however, who feared not death. One gloomy morning, when morning practice was cancelled, Mo Run snuck into Red Lotus Pavilion with breakfast to canoodle with Chu Wanning. After they ate, the man upon whom the masses had bestowed such titles as gorgeous woman and beautiful man took Chu Wanning's hand with a grin and asked, Shizin, inside the lust gourd, did you make me your wife? That's the end of the chapter. We're on page 163 for chapter 194, which is... Hang on. We're about to go to break. I really just have to just speak the title of this fucking chapter. It's called Shizun. Am I not the danmei you love anymore? And on that note, where the fuck is my bookmark? There it is. That's where we'll be reading when we get back. Since it's a little after 4, I can't form thoughts. Since it's a little bit after 4, I'm going to try to make this as short as possible. I'm literally just standing up, fixing all of this, and then sitting back down again. But we're going to go have a couple of moments, whatever that word is, and chill in the break room for a little bit. So I'll be back in just a little bit. Okay? Okay. And we're back from a rather eventful previous chapter. What does this mean? We already had a lot of threads and mysteries happening. And then now we have this? Like, why did the gourd recognize him? Why would it necessarily present as Tisha and June? Why? And how? Somebody suggested that that the gourd like recognized Tianwen, and like that was definitely like the tipping point, but it was very specifically like I didn't know it was you, as in like Tianwen tells him that it's Chu Wanning. How does what? But now, just like I feared, now Chu Wanning has been, to a certain degree, outed, in a sense, ish. That was a lot to be happening in a chapter coming up on halfway through a novel that's been rather fluffy so far. Day, that's a good question. Were we told when and where the gourd came from? Were we? Me in details. Like, oof, I'd have to read the whole scene again. That is a good question, though. We're on page 163 for chapter 194, which is called Shizun, Am I Not the Danmei You Love Anymore? So there's also this. Love Bunnies also made a comment a little earlier during the break that was just very sweet in general. So thank you so much, Love Bunnies, once again. You are a delightful presence to this stream, and I'm really glad you're having a good time. That's not where the coaster is, Brittany. That's absolutely not where that is. Chu Wanning was too full to deal with such silliness. What's this about a wife? You're a man. How can you say these things without blushing? Morun smiled more brightly. Then, if you didn't make me your wife, did I make you mine? This infuriated Chu Wanning. And he wasn't just furious. He was ashamed. He couldn't tell this Morun that the shape the lust gourd had taken was that Morun, the pale-skinned phantom who appeared in Chu Wanning's dreams. Nor could he tell him about the intense, obscene entanglements they'd shared in those visions. There's something really wild about making so much progress as a person that the person you hurt most thinks so much of you that he can't even tell you the story about what he believes to be a dream version. Dude, you see what I mean? So, like, on one hand, the growth. On the other hand, that's, like, one of the saddest fucking things I've ever heard. As the saying went, humans needed face, like trees needed bark. The Yuhang elder's dignity was of the greatest importance. Chu Wanning swept his sleeves aside and said, If you're going to keep babbling, you can show yourself out. You're banned. As expected, Morun came to heel. Pursing his lips, he gazed woefully at Chu Wanning with dark and shining eyes, then nuzzled his cheek, voiced a soft pout. Okay, I won't ask any more questions. Dear Shizun, don't chase me off. Tried to cute his way out of this. Like he's a husky or some shit. Stick with Shizun. Don't call me dear. Morun's tender address melted Chu Wanning's heart. He couldn't bear it. Still, he pushed Morun away, expressionless. Stop with the random names. But just saying Shizun isn't affectionate at all. Is that so? Morun tried to persuade him. Look, it's boring if I call you Shizun in front of others, but also call you Shizun when we're alone. Wouldn't you agree? Chu Wanning wasn't falling for it. No. Morun tried a different tack, pulling at Chu Wanning's sleeves as he said, Shizun, Shizun, Shizun. His tone was honey-sweet, raising the hairs along Chu Wanning's spine. At the end of his patience, Chu Wanning smacked a book against Morun's face. Shut up. It was a thick tome, but it struck him so lightly it didn't hurt a bit. Morun lowered the book with a smile, revealing that peerlessly handsome face. I worry if I get too used to addressing you this way, I'll do it in front of others by accident. So it's better to use a different term. Chu Wanning frowned. Don't you think you'll get accustomed to using a different term and use it in front of other people as well? Morun sighed. Why do you never take the bait? Chu Wanning's hackles rose at that. Displeased, he wholly turned his attention to his own book, refusing to acknowledge the disciple sprawled on the desk, idly blowing at his own bangs. After a few moments of mutual peace, Morun spoke, the picture of dejection. I just wanted I'm sorry, they're being far too, cute and coupley right now, and I keep smacking the shit out of the boom arm. This is gonna take me a second to adjust. I just wanted some special treatment from Shizun. Both Shimei and Shui Meng call you Shizun. If I also call you Shizun, there's no difference at all. I'm not really asking for much. I just want a different name, something only I can call you. Chu Wanning set down his brush and turned to him, straightening his spine. It's not like I'll use it very often. Mo-run's thick lashes were lowered, leaving a smudge of shadow on the bridge of his nose. Only sometimes. Is that still not okay? Chu Wanning eyed him silently. It's fine. Mo-run looked crestfallen. I won't. It doesn't matter. In the end, Chu Wanning relented. Not even a decade of seniority gave him the strength to endure this young man's incessant cajoling and pouting pleas. As he studied this handsome man who grinned so brightly at his nod of assent, Chu Wanning suddenly felt he'd been tricked. It seemed he was always the fierce and intimidating one brandishing his claws, yet he always wound up conceding, indulging Mo-run in every particular. He was like a fish swimming in circles, only to end up taking this bait named Mo-run in the end. What should I call you? Asked the bait. Whatever you want, Chu Wanning wearily replied. No way, this is very important. Mo-run racked his brain, but his brain was lacking and rather crude besides. After thinking for some time, he ventured, Baby? Chu Wanning recalled that dream and couldn't bear it. No. Chulong? He couldn't abide this either. Face stormy, he asked, Then should I call you Renmei? Sorry, excuse me. We're backing up. I'm gonna run into that. Face stormy, he asked, Then should I call you Renmei? That comes with a footnote. Both lung and mei are terms of endearment for one's lover, primarily used for men and women respectively. Chu Wanning smiled against his will. Wait, I'm so, what's the word? I'm frantic. I don't know what to freaking do. Oh my God. Okay. No, yes, I was about to do that thing that I do sometimes where I just turn the page after a footnote. I don't know why I do that, but I caught myself. That's the important part. You're right. Mo-run scratched his head with a smile, then furrowed his brow and thought once more. Unfortunately, he had overtaxed what scant inspiration he had and produced something even worse. Chulong, baby? Even Mo-run couldn't take that one seriously. He clapped his hand to his forehead in despair. Chu Wanning smiled against his will. You can stop trying. What's the point of thinking so hard about it? These things have to come naturally. Mo-run privately agreed, yet he didn't want to give up. In the end, he grinned. Then I'll think properly about it in the future and come up with a name that suits you best. He grabbed Chu Wanning from where he'd been tidying the books and pulled him into his lap, his hand on the back of Chu Wanning's neck. He stared at him for a long time. Uneasy, Chu Wanning asked, What are you doing? Mo-run sighed. I can't stop myself, he mumbled. No matter how many times I look. Ridiculous. Chu Wanning's lips were captured before he could say more. Mo-run's mouth moved against his, lips deliciously sweet over the wet heat below. He wrapped the man in his lap and his arms as they kissed with consuming adoration. Rain fell in sheets outside, drowning the shameful noises of their lips and tongues. When they parted, Chu Wanning blinked open, teary eyes. He both wanted to look at Mo-run, and didn't dare. Mo-run smiled. He knew Chu Wanning was thin-skinned. He couldn't help pulling him close to caress him, their heartbeats pounding an interweaving duet. It doesn't matter what I call you. Nothing, Mo-run said, smiling. Shizun is the best. Chu Wanning pillowed his head on Mo-run's shoulder. There was a sweetness in the sensation, but also a certain precarity. Sitting as he was on Mo-run's lap, he could vividly feel something hot and hard beneath. He thought smoke must be coming from his ears. After a long pause, he whispered, Are you really? Mo-run cleared his throat. It's nothing. I'll help you. Chu Wanning's cheeks burned as he said it. You don't need to, Mo-run hastily cut in. Shizun has to go to the elders' meeting soon. Chu Wanning glanced at the water clock. Not for 15 minutes. It should be... It's not enough, Mo said, awkward. Huh. I can't come that quickly. Oh dear. What a terrible problem to have. He really must overcome everything in this book. Chu Wanning stared at him. When he understood, he flushed to the roots of his hair. He quickly got up from Mo-Run's lap and took a step back. Then he felt angry with himself, thinking such behavior too cowardly. He stepped forward again. Mo-Run found him adorable. He sat on the chair, hiding nothing. Even with clothes in the way, the bulge in his pants was still shockingly ferocious. Capable of taking a man's life. I'll stop teasing. Mo-Run caught Chu Wanning's wrist. He wanted to pull him close and kiss his mouth again, but Chu Wanning's taste was so tempting he was afraid a single indulgence would destroy his restraint. So he only held Chu Wanning's hand. He brought it to his lips, eyes fixed on Chu Wanning until the moment he lowered his lashes and kissed it sincerely. Mo-Run licked the back of Chu Wanning's hand. Shizun, you're so sweet. That's a scene break. The rain fell on Sichuan for another 2 weeks before the clouds broke apart for a clear, sunny day. Mo-Run picked through the puddles in the bamboo forest, some shallow and some deep. Morning practice was back on today, but Chu Wanning hadn't appeared. A quick inquiry located him in the backwoods, where he'd apparently gone to teach a few of Xuanji's thicker disciples how to toss throwing stars. Mo-Run heard Chu Wanning's stern voice before he saw the practice grounds. You need to relax your hands. Hold the star between your index and ring fingers. Concentrate your spiritual energy in your fingertips. When the light glows gold, release it at your target. The sound alone told Mo-Run the disciples had failed. They sighed piteously. Man, this is so hard. Elder, could you show us again? When the light turns gold, the throwing star will grow hot to the touch, Chu Wanning said. Feel for it. Don't try to look. Can you hit your target without looking? A cheerful voice answered from behind him. Of course you can. Chu Wanning turned. What are you doing here? Moshishong, the new disciples chorused. Among them was an exceptionally pretty female disciple. She flushed when she caught sight of Mo-Run, hastily making her bows along with the rest. Mo-Run scarcely acknowledged Xuanji's disciples as he walked straight up to Chu Wanning. Shizun, why don't you put on a blindfold and show them how it's done? Chu Wanning hesitated. Okay. Permission granted, Mo-Run took down his own pale purple hair ribbon, 3 fingers wide, and laid it across Chu Wanning's eyes. He tied it tightly, but not painfully so, the silk of the ribbon like flowing water. Its ends danced in the breeze. Throwing star, Chu Wanning said. One of the Xuanji elder's disciples came up and handed their throwing star to Chu Wanning. 3, Chu Wanning continued. Huh? Confused, the disciple retrieved an additional 2 stars from their weapons pouch and handed them to Chu Wanning. Chu Wanning stroked pale, slender fingers over the cold metal surface, pursing his lips. Without word or pause, the stars shot from between his fingers with a flick of his wrist and a momentary flash. Their collisions rang out. Right on the target, right on the bullseye, but only one of them. Chu Wanning said nothing, but Mo-Run blandly replied, The other 2 are on the targets behind you. Chu Wanning being hot about it. The new disciples turned to look in disbelief. The remaining 2 stars, one on either side, were stuck deep in the exact center of targets in completely opposite directions. Morning sunlight spilled down through the rustling bamboo forest. Xuanji's disciples were stunned speechless. Chu Wanning raised his hand to remove the blindfold, revealing half-lidded phoenix eyes and fluttering lashes. He handed the ribbon back to Mo-Run. The first sound you heard was the 3 throwing stars colliding in midair. Control your spiritual energy properly, and you can make 2 of them ricochet and fly in opposite directions. In battle, you can use this to catch your opponent off guard and take first strike advantage. The disciples exchanged glances. One youth, face shining with anticipation, cried, "Elder, how do we learn this? Is there a trick to it?" "Mo-Run," Chu Wanning said. "Show them your hands." Mo-Run held them out with a smile. The disciples crowded around him, shoving at each other in an attempt to figure out what trick would be revealed to them. No, it's gonna be some scarred up fucking hands. After staring for a long while, they hadn't figured out a thing. But the female cultivator's heart was pounding, her eyes bright. She and her friends were all new to the sect. They hadn't yet reached a focused state of mind and often went down the mountain to buy books for pleasure reading. They, too, had perused that God knows what rankings Chu Wanning had once read. When the girls had seen the size ranking, they'd been scandalized, giggling as they nudged and goaded one another. But their bashfulness didn't stop them from discussing the contents in whispers back in the disciples' quarters. "I heard the longer a man's fingers are, the larger that thing is," said one feisty Shijie with an ample chest and the courage to match. "When I get the chance, I'll sneak behind Moshishang at Mungpo Hall. I want to see how big his hands are." Later, that Shijie really did carry out her plan. In order to line up behind Mo-Run, she'd run so fast she accidentally knocked over a bowl of hot soup and spilled half of it on her quarry. Her lips parted in shock and embarrassment. As she stood, shaken, a large, fine-boned hand picked up her spilled bowl and placed it back on the counter before handing her a new one. "Careful. It's a shame to waste good food." His low and husky voice left her unable to so much as lift her head. Her cheeks flamed red, both her face and the bowl steaming. Throughout the entire episode, she'd only dared peeks at Mo-Run, at his waist, well-muscled and trim, at his lapels, which framed his broad chest, and of course she snuck the most glances at his hands. Exquisite. She returned, unable to describe those hands, even with a dictionary's worth of praise. This was the only worthy descriptor. All the Shimei in the room had fallen silent, pursing their lips. Their hearts were ablaze, kindled with wild and suggestive imaginings. In the present, a chilling voice broke through the female disciple's reverie. "What have you noticed?" "Elder, please forgive me," another disciple said. "This disciple is stupid and has not noticed anything." "Moshishang's hand looks particularly powerful?" Everyone made their guess, but when it was her turn, her mind went blank. She blurted, cheeks crimson. "His fingers are very long." Mo-Run was stunned. What on earth were these youths looking at? He pulled his hands back and scratched his head, turning to Chu Wanning. Chu Wanning might not know what was meant by the comment about Mo-Run's fingers, but he wasn't stupid. One glance at the female disciple's blushing face told him it was nothing good. His face darkened and he swept his sleeves back. "What the hell are you looking at?" His visible displeasure frightened the disciples into bowing their heads. Mo-Run didn't want Chu Wanning to be called harsh. Sensing the building tension, he smiled and volunteered the answer. "It's calluses." He shot a look at Chu Wanning and continued. "Scraping your fingertips bloody, letting the calluses form, then scraping them bloody again. After about 100 times, you'll be able to accurately control your spiritual energy. There's no shortcut." Chu Wanning taught them until noon, by which time most of the disciples had more or less grasped the basics. Then it was time for him to take his leave. These were someone else's disciples, after all. Some pointers were fine, but teaching them in too much detail might offend the Xuanji elder. Chu Wanning was no longer a 15-year-old teenager who'd just come down from the mountains. He'd finally grasped the intricacies of such social rules. He and Mo-Run left the bamboo forest and arrived at Naiha Bridge. They crossed it together, shoulder to shoulder. Beneath their trailing sleeves, the backs of their hands brushed lightly with every step. It was a fleeting touch, but it made their hearts soften and melt, revealing the tender sprouts of spring. Every time this bitch talks about melting, and ice melting, and spring, and rebirth, and no, fuck this woman, no. There was no one around. Moran finally reached out and interlaced his fingers with Chu Wanning's, though they'd have to let go very soon. Both of their ears flushed pink, their throats dry and hot. Ever since that rainy night in Wuchang Town, they'd had hardly any time alone together at all. Even during their infrequent trysts at the Red Lotus Pavilion, they worried constantly about Shui Jingyong suddenly popping in unannounced. At this point, a momentary touch of the hands was enough to stir the flames in Moran's chest. "Shizun," he murmured. "Tonight, can we go?" He was still speaking when he saw someone running toward them. Moran swiftly straightened to his full height, pressed his lips together, and fell silent, stepping to one side. The newcomer hadn't noticed anything amiss. When they reached them, they bowed their way forward and said, "Yu Hung Elder, there's an urgent matter. The sect leader requests your presence in Loyalty Hall at once." "What is it?" Chu Wanning asked. "Guests have come, bringing important information relating to Shu Shuanglin. Shui Jungmun can't make the final decision on his own, so he called all the elders over in the morning for a discussion. You're the last one." The name Shu Shuanglin drove all thoughts of affection from Chu Wanning's mind. He rushed straight for Loyalty Hall. Moran followed a step behind. "Wait for me, I fought Shu Shuanglin before, maybe I can help." The two leapt swiftly with Qinggong and soon arrived at Loyalty Hall. When they pushed open the door, they were met with silence. Aside from Shui Jingyong and the elders, 2 others stood within the hall, covered in blood. Moran's face fell upon a familiar scabbard on one of their backs. After a moment, his eyes widened in shock and his face instantly paled. "Yuang Shi?" That's the end of the chapter. That's just that's the end of the chapter. That's 174. Hang on a second, because we still have a bit of time. I didn't think we'd be making this great of time. So, oh wait, or did I just math improperly? Hang on. I may have screwed up the page math when I was figuring out how many chapters we could cover. 1 second. Just imagine that one math meme and all the calculations flying past my head for a second. 24. No. Yeah. We're on page 175 for chapter 195, which is called Shizun Knows Best. Duh. Which truer sentiments have never been spoken. I did indeed miscalculate. We should be doing chapter 195. At the sound of her name, Yuang Shi turned. She looked frightful, but her aura wasn't as weak as Moran had feared. At the sight of Moran, Yuang Shi lowered her lashes and bowed, still in masculine dress. She couldn't shake the habit. "Mo Gongzhe," she said. Moran looked at her, then to Nangongse at her side. Where did you two come from? All this blood." "We ran into many ghosts and demons on our way out of Linyi," Yuangshi said. "We haven't had a chance to change. My apologies." Moran had more questions, but Shui Jingyong cut in. "Renair's here too? Good, let's all come in." Chu Wanning entered the room without looking at Moran. He went directly to his place and sat down, fixing his clothes before turning to Nangongse. Even if he and Nangongse weren't truly master and disciple, Chu Wanning had been one of Nangongse's first teachers. His heart ached when he looked at Nangongse, but what left his mouth was the simple question, "Are you two all right?" This was the first time since the fall of Rufang's sect that anyone had asked such a thing. The rims of Nangongse's eyes reddened. He bent his head, fingers tightening into fists. He closed his eyes, managing after some moments to control the urge to cry in Chu Wanning's presence. "We're fine," he squeezed out. "It's been bearable." But Chu Wanning sighed softly. He lowered his lashes and said no more. Of course he didn't believe Nangongse. Linyi was a great distance away. It was impossible that they hadn't suffered over the course of their turbulent journey. Shui Jingyong was in obvious distress. "Yu Hung, since you weren't here earlier, Nangongongja and Monsieur, Discovered a clue and specifically came here to tell us about it, he explained. So I was told. Something to do with Shu Lin. Sit down and let's hear it then. Morun fetched some chairs. Can I speak? Nobody saw that. But Nengongse and Yuwangshi knew they were filthy and stinking and declined to sit. Chu Wanning didn't insist. He took a breath and began. After we parted at Linyi, where did you two go? The apocalyptic fire forced Yuwangshi and me past the river to Wei Mountain, Nengongse said. He paused. Wei Mountain is deserted, so there was no way to send a message, and Yuwangshi was injured. After the fire died down, we gathered our strength there before returning to Rufeng sect. The sect where Chu Wanning himself had found refuge when he'd first set out in the world. Nengongse's words reminded him how much things had changed. He couldn't identify what he felt. After a long silence, he sighed. It must be completely barren now. Zongshe is correct. It is barren, but these things have crawled out from the ruins. Chu Wanning looked up. What have? Insects. Nengongse untied a bloody pouch placed in front of him. Through its half-open mouth, they could see a mass of buzzing and crawling insects, their green backs spotted with black. 3 large spots and 2 small marked each carapace, and the faint stench of blood emanated from their long abdomens. Most stayed quietly in the bag as if they feared the light, but a few flew out to crawl across the walls and pillars of Loyalty Hall, leaving streaks of blood in their wake. Morun recognized these bugs. Soul Eaters. They could only be found in the blood pool near Rufeng sect, a type of undead insect that relied on human flesh and souls for sustenance. Thanks! I hate it. We gotta be afraid of fucking beetly house fly. No! No! Not since MXTX had the audacity to combine scorpions and snakes have I disliked something more. The assembled elders found them unspeakably vile. The Lucun elder even pulled a handkerchief over his face to block the stink. We found these soul eaters in the wreckage, Nengongse said. At first I thought they'd been drawn over from the blood pool, but soon realized that couldn't be right. Why not? There were too many of them. Yuwangshi and I walked through all 72 cities of Rufeng sect, and these soul eaters were everywhere. In the cracks between bricks, in the mud and filth, in the ashes. We found it too strange. After digging a little deeper, we discovered there were larvae as well as adults. He hesitated. Zongshe, I'm sure you see the problem. An absolutely massive sect-wide infestation of flesh-eating flies? No, what's the problem? I don't see anything wrong with this picture. Chu Wanning wasn't familiar with the goo witchcraft, but it only took him a few moments to follow Nengongse's line of thought. The blood pool was near Mount Wei, separated from Linyi by a wide river. Soul eaters couldn't fly great distances, and it hadn't been long since the fire. Perhaps adult insects might have gone fluttering over upon scenting death, but larvae? How could larvae sprout legs to ford the river and the creeks? How could they get to the scorched earth of Rufeng sect by themselves? Frowning, Chu Wanning asked, Someone planted them there ahead of time. That's what I think as well. At this, the Tenlong elder immediately understood. Soul eaters can store spiritual energy. After the fire, resentful spirits would be everywhere. There were so many cultivators in Linyi. If the insects placed there fed on their spirits, they would have effectively become seeds, containing every type of spiritual energy they consumed. Once possessed of such a multitude of seeds, anyone could draw on their spiritual energy to construct many types of arrays. The second they freaking said spiritual energy, I should have realized. That's a problem. Yeah, that's a problem. I'll admit that. Then the question was, who planted the insects there? Someone who knew of the disaster that befell Lin Yi ahead of time, who needed spiritual energy from outside sources. No one spoke, but the answer was plain. It could only be the perpetrator himself, Xu Shuanglin. Or, to call him by his true name, Nangong Shu. Or, in my opinion, since we saw, the hand emerge from the rip in the thing as he pulled, then when all the shit was going down in Rufeng sect, right? And obviously we know that the fake Go Chen deal only led to the ultimate big bad, whoever the fuck that is, the hand, we're all presuming. I don't even remember where the fuck my brain was going with that. Jesus, this has me so all over the place. Oh no, it could have been him. Could have been just the big bad, who he would also know what was going to go down in Rufeng sect, and that would be a great opportunity for him, and whatever the fuck he's doing. So the upper cultivation realm has spent all this time hunting for traces of Xu Shuanglin's spiritual energy, while he's not been using his own power at all, but that of the bugs, Shui Jingyong asked. If that's all it takes to mask who's pulling some spiritual energy bullshit, then yeah, it could totally be the big bad. Exactly so, Nangongsa said. Oh, Shui Jingyong murmured. The tracking spell seeks human spiritual energy, but not that of beasts or demons. If Xu Shuanglin has been using this strategy, he could indeed hide his tracks for a very long time. He turned to the Tenlong Elder. Could we find Xu Shuanglin by following the bugs? Impossible, the Tenlong Elder replied. Soul Eaters move through the underworld. After eating their fill of scraps of soul, they burrow into the earth. There's no trail to follow. At this point, Shui Jingyong had another thought. If they go to the underworld, why don't we ask Great Master Huizui? Huizui, he knows much about the ghost realm. Are we going back to the underworld to investigate? Except we're both going this time? Is Chu Wanning gonna be like, this place is familiar? Like, Chu Wanning swiftly cut in. There's no need to ask him. Why? It would be pointless, Chu Wanning said. He's unwilling to involve himself with the mortal world. He won't say a thing. Chu Wanning had been Huizui's direct disciple. Even if the listeners didn't understand, his resolute words brooked no argument. The hall lapsed into silence. At length, Shui Jingyong mumbled. Then what do we do? If Xu Shuanglin can use the goo insects to evade detection, our efforts are useless. Do we do nothing? What if we try another method? Chu Wanning suggested. Such as? Sect leader, when Xu Shuanglin left, he took 3 things with him. Do you remember what they were? Shui Jingyong named them one by one. Lo Fenghua's spiritual core, Nangong... He glanced at Nangong Se and softened his voice. Nangong Zhengmen. And a holy weapon. Right, Chu Wanning said. No one does anything without purpose. Even in his rush to escape, he still took these with him. It wasn't because he had nothing better to do. Sect leader, from your perspective, why would Xu Shuanglin take his elder brother? For revenge? Then why take the holy weapon? Shui Jingyong considered it. To use as one of 5 sources of pure spiritual energy to reopen the heavenly rift. He tore open the heavenly rift to retrieve Lo Fenghua's spiritual core, Chu Wanning said. There's no incentive for him to open it again. So what was the reason? I believe it's possible he wishes to use the rebirth technique, Chu Wanning said. Shui Jingyong stared. But you don't need 5 types of pure spiritual energy to use rebirth. Didn't Great Master Huizui do it before? Chu Wanning shook his head. Huizui once said rebirth techniques aren't all the same. Sect leader, we can't take his method as the model. The Tanglong elder scoffed. The Yuhong elder speaks with no evidence. How are you so sure Shu Shuanglin means to use the forbidden rebirth technique? Because of the last thing he took, Lo Fenghua's spiritual core. In the great hall, Chu Wanning's voice was steady and methodical. Many years ago, I interrogated a girl in Butterfly Town who died in tragic circumstances. This girl had once met a madman covered in blood, who force-fed her tangerines and said her eyes resembled those of an old friend. That madman left her with a certain phrase. There was a man from Linyi whose heart died at 20. 20. The age Nangong Shu had been when he was framed and vilified by the masses. At that year's spiritual mountain competition, he'd gone in with high spirits, secure in the assumption that all his talent and years of hard work would receive fair reward, that he would get everything he was due. But his hard work only earned him a lifetime of infamy. The blade in his hands and the ambition in his heart fell to nothing before his brother's silver-tongued flattery. He was consumed by hatred. There was no one he could turn to. The whole world mocked him, blamed him, spurned him. In the end, the living man became a corpse, and the corpse became a vengeful ghost. That ghost crawled out from his jagged hate, intent on regaining all he deserved from all the righteous gentlemen of the cultivation realm. There's no question that this madman was Shu Shuanglin. But who was the old friend he spoke of? Who did he see in Lo Shenshen's eyes? Similar in looks, surnamed Lo. Shui Jingyong exclaimed, "It couldn't have been Lo Fenghua." "I think it was," Chu Wanning said. At the bottom of Jinchun Lake, Shu Shuanglin tried to use the Zhenlong chess formation as well as rebirth. He used the Zhenlong chess formation to control others, but why practice rebirth? He took sect leader Nangong and Lo Fenghua with him. The rebirth technique couldn't possibly be for sect leader Nangong. "But why revive Lo Fenghua?" Shui Jingyong murmured. "Didn't Lo Fenghua plot against him?" "Human hearts are unfathomable. We can't know for sure," Chu Wanning replied. "But I can't think of another reason for him to take Lo Fenghua's core other than for rebirth." The hall was stunned. Just taking a second and pouring one out for the stunned hall, because I'm not stunned. Not at all. I'm fine. This is fine. This is fine. This is fine. This is all fine. Where even? I have no idea. I'm down here, aren't I? Upon careful thought, they found Chu Wanning's analysis reasonable, but it still lacked evidence. These were merely guesses. The truth was perhaps known only to the elusive Shu Shuanglin himself, and a certain hand floating in the air, pulling people into rifts of the... After the meeting was adjourned, Mo Run, too, thought it over. When night fell, he went in search of Shui Jingyong. The sect leader was in a side room poring over books for information on the soul eaters, searching for some clue they could use to find Shu Shuanglin. "Uncle." "Renair, it's so late. Why haven't you gone to bed?" "I can't sleep. I wanted to ask Uncle about something." Shui Jingyong nodded toward the chair, inviting him to sit, Mo Run wasted no time getting to the point. Uncle, what was Lo Fenghua Shu Shuang Lin Shifu like? Ah, Lo Fenghua. Shui Xingyang frowned, racking his brain. He shook his head. I never knew him well. In general, he was righteous, stalwart, and fair. He was a man of few words, but he had a good temper and was careful and competent. He was never sloppy in his work. During his stint as head of Rufeng sect, he even sent his disciples to the lower cultivation realm to help exorcise demons. In short, other than planning to usurp the position of sect leader of the Nangong clan, he had no other scandals, right? Shui Jingyong sighed. That's right. Far from being scandal-ridden, he was a good man. I don't understand how someone like him could cast such a hateful spell on his own disciple. It's feeling very square peg round hole in here. Mo Run thought it over. Uncle, don't you feel your description of Lo Fenghua is quite similar to someone else? Shui Jingyong stared for a moment. Do you mean Yu Heng? No way. Yu Heng's temper is terrible. Not him. Who? Yu Wangshi, Mo Run said. Ah. Slowly, Shui Jingyong's tiger-like eyes widened, his mouth working around those 3 syllables before slowly giving them voice. Yu Wangshi. Yu Wangshi was kind yet resolute, steadfast yet not unbending. Indeed, she was quite similar to the Lo Fenghua in Shui Jingyong's memories, the man who'd led Rufeng for 1 short year. Isn't that right? Mo Run asked. Yes. Shock grew in Shui Jingyong. Yu Wangshi and Lo Fenghua were of different genders and far apart in age, and their status within Rufeng sect was nothing alike. He'd never thought to compare them. But now that Mo Run mentioned it, he saw that they had basically been cast from the same mold. The same exact one. The longer Shui Jingyong thought, the greater his astonishment grew. Discarded memories surfaced one after another. Even the style of clothes Lo Fenghua favored when he was a guest of Rufeng sect was similar to those Yu Wangshi usually wore. Then there was their comportment and manner of speech, even the way they drew their bows. In Shui Jingyong's younger days, he'd once seen Lo Fenghua shoot at a celebration for Nengonglu's birthday. Rufeng sect had extended an invitation to both Shui brothers. In his mind, Shui Jingyong saw Lo Fenghua in the snow, drawing his bow with only 3 fingers, his pinky taut, the arrow whistling through the air, cutting through the fluttering snowflakes, and taking down a snow rabbit demon at nearly 100 paces. The onlookers applauded his archery skills, but Lo Fenghua had merely smiled and flipped the bow around, so it leaned on his left arm, his fingertips brushing the string. It was a natural gesture, without thought. Even his finishing movements differed from the majestic posturing of others. The sight had left a deep impression on Shui Jingyong, watching nearby. But now that he thought back, during the Battle of the Heavenly Rift, when Yu Wangshi and Nengong Se had been firing their bows back to back, Nengong Se's arrows had flown straight and true, yet Shui Jingyong hadn't taken much note. Rather, it was Yu Wangshi who, upon depleting a quiver, habitually looped the bow around her left arm with a flick of her wrist, and unwittingly caressed the string with her fingertips. At that time, he'd only watched, eyes drawn to that gesture, so smooth, so carefree and yet self-assured. A gesture that reminded him of a certain someone. Yu Wangshi, who's still wearing men's clothes, couldn't kick the habit? What the fuck is happening? Shui Jingyong smacked his head. You're right. You're really right. They're basically identical. Mo Run arched a brow. What do you mean, identical? The way they shoot. Lo Fenghua is far too much like Yo Wangshi. They're not similar, they're exactly the same. Mo Run smiled against his will at Shui Jingyong's shocked exclamations. Uncle, you're wrong. How so? Cause and effect. Effect? It's not that Lo Fenghua is like Yo Wangshi, Mo Run sighed, but that Yo Wangshi is like Lo Fenghua. His eyes were bright. He was finally sure that his guess was correct. Shu Shuanglin's pursuit of rebirth was an attempt to bring Lo Fenghua back from the dead. Mo Run couldn't speak to the secrets that still lay hidden in Ru Fengsek's past, but he'd been through 2 lifetimes. In the last life, Shu Shuanglin had died for Yo Wangshi. In this one, he devastated Ru Fengsek, yet spared her alone. Why? It couldn't be simply because Shu Shuanglin didn't have the heart to hurt his adoptive daughter. There was a certain carelessness to Shu Shuanglin's actions, speaking words like, there was a man from Linyi whose heart died at 20, giving his residence a name like farewell to 3 lifetimes. In some ways, it seemed as if he wanted nothing more than to forget his past. Even the name he'd given his adoptive daughter was so clear and undisguised. Wangshi. To forget the past. To forget his past self. To forget all the bygone grudge and gratitude. But, perhaps knowingly, Shu Shuanglin had raised Yo Wangshi to be like the shadow he couldn't forget. He'd molded this abandoned orphan into another's form. This man who wished so fervently to forget his past was forever mired in the mud of memory. At this point, a faint suspicion unfurled in Mo Run's mind. Mo Run knew what it was to wander insane in the darkness. He felt his guesses regarding Shu Shuanglin's actions were more accurate than most. Yet by the same token, he couldn't share his hypothesis. He could only draw his own conclusions and quietly observe events. Once again, what the fuck is happening? Anna's reading my mind. Well, if Shu Shuanglin raised Yu Wangshi to be like Lo Fenghua, maybe he loved Lo Fenghua or something. That's what I'm thinking. The next day, that was a scene break. I don't know if I said that. The next day, Shui Jingyong summoned everyone once more. His search through the library had yielded nothing of use. Poisonous insects and strange beasts are the forte of Guyue. Why don't we tell Jiangxi we found soul eaters in Ru Fengsek's ruins? The Xuanji elder agreed. Hanlin the Sage, the finest healer in the world, is a member of Jiangxi's camp. His expertise would be a great help to our investigation. But Chu Wanning frowned. Monsieur, did you ever see your Yifu raise any poisonous insects or beasts? Never. What about the healing arts or beast taming techniques? Did he use any of those? He looked after a parrot. Other than that, he wouldn't spare the effort to adopt a dog, much less any fantastical beasts. The healing arts had even less appeal to him. Chu Wanning turned to Shui Jingyong. Let's not tell Guyue about the soul eaters just yet. Why not? Shu Shuanglin wasn't learned in the healing arts or beast taming techniques. It might not be him feeding and controlling the goo insects. There's still the hand that reached out of the rift at the very end. You suspect Guyue. I won't jump to rash conclusions, Chu Wanning said. But it always pays to be cautious. That's the end of the... That's the end of the chapter. That's it. It's past 5. past 5. I gotta go. I have to leave. I have to leave now. I'll be back on Thursday at 2:15 if you want to hop onto the book chat, the Erha book chat for patrons and YouTube members. We do that. Talk about what we just read today. We'll be doing that on Thursday at 2:15. I'm gonna have to reread some sections of this, man. If I have the time, and I hope I do. I have the time. Like on Thursday, I'm bringing the red string. You know what I'm saying? So I guess I'll see you on Thursday, as per usual, to keep reading or whatever. We're not exactly. I don't think we're exactly halfway through, but we're coming up on the midpoint. And you know, even in a volume. Hi, I'm Brittany. I'm obsessed with midpoints. So this feels like we're coming up on one. As happy as that makes me, I have to go. Title of the next chapter. Hang on. What? I gotta go. Okay? The next fucking chapter, hang on. Shazoon, shall we take a bath? That's the title of the next chapter. I'll see you guys on Thursday, okay? Fucking bye. Bye.